Hello class, welcome to Unit 7 Video 4. Today we're going to be dividing polynomials using division again. Yesterday we learned synthetic division. Today we're going to continue working with synthetic division. Your goal today is that you can divide a polynomial by a polynomial of equal or lesser degree using synthetic division. Okay, we're going to be putting things today in what we call factored form, okay, using this division. So using division, we're also going to be putting things into factored form. So we're going to look at an example from geometry, which is the volume of a rectangular prism is given by this equation. So this represents the volume, and it wants us to find the missing measures. The volume of a prism is length times width times height. Okay. We know that one measure is x minus 4. So that means it's a factor of v of x, which is our volume equation. So what we need to do is we need to figure out, well, what are my other measures? So let's just say for now that the length is x minus 4. We need to figure out the width times the height. So I need to divide out an x minus 4 from my volume. So the way I do this is I take my factor and I set it equal to 0 and I solve. And then I go ahead and I'm going to use synthetic division from yesterday. Putting the 4 in my box, then I'm going to write down all my coefficients. Okay, before I write down my coefficients, I need to make sure I'm not missing any values. Remember yesterday, if there was no x squared listed, we'd have to have a 0. So I have 3, 2, 1, so we are good here. So if I put down my coefficients, I would have 1, 3, negative 36, 32. Leave some space, draw my line, and now I'm ready to go ahead and do my synthetic division. We bring down the 1. We multiply 4 times 1, 4. Add together 3 plus 4 is 7. 4 times 7 is 28. We would go ahead and add these two together. Negative 36 plus 28 is negative 8. 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. We add and we get 0. This is my remainder. This is my constant. This is my x. This is my x squared. So right now we know the length. So what it's really saying is that our volume is x minus 4 times whatever we have left after we've divided out x minus 4. We have x squared plus 7x minus 8. So we have the length, like I said. Could be width or height, but we're going to say right now it's the length. I want to figure out my width and my height. So I need to break this down. Well, how do I break down x squared plus 7x minus 8? I factor it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep my x minus 4. And I'm going to factor this piece. So remember, I factor by saying what multiplies to negative 8 but adds to 7. Well, what multiplies to 8? Just 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. So which of these two options could help me get to a positive 7? Well, if I had minus 1 plus 8 gives me that. And then is negative 1 times 8 negative 8? Yes, it is. So I would have x minus 1 and x plus 8. So right here, this is my factored form. This represents my length, my width, and my height. So today we're going to be breaking down cubics and quartics into the factored form using synthetic division. So this is what we call the factored form. And this will be helpful later in Chapter 7 when we actually start graphing cubic functions. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at example 1. It says, given one factor, use division to find the remaining factors. Write your answer in factored form. So we're going to go ahead and do exactly what we did in the last one. We start out, we are given one factor. So we have x plus 3 is equal to 0. So I solve this, so x is equal to negative 3. I do synthetic division. I got 3, 2, 1, 0, so we're good. So write down my coefficients. We got 2, 15, 22, negative 15. Bring down the 2, we multiply, negative 6, 15 plus negative 6 is 9. Negative 3 times 9 is negative 27. We add, we get negative 5, positive 15. When I add, I get 0. So from here, this is my remainder, my constant, my x squared. So we're trying to put it into factored form. Always write down what we divide by. This is my first factor. So we have x plus 3, and then I have what's left here after I divided out my x plus 3. I have 2x squared plus 9x minus 5. Now this is not completely factored. I need to go ahead and factor down this piece. So this one's a little bit more tricky because we have a 2 in front. So I say, well, what multiplies to 2? 1 times 2. it won't multiply to 5. We have to do a little bit more guess and check. So we have 2x and x in the front, because that's what multiplies to 2x squared. And now I just need to see how this works out. So if I try 1 here and 5 here, I take 1 times x gives me x, and 2x times 5 gives me 10x. With those two, can I add it or subtract in any way to get to 9x? Yes, if this is negative. So that means when I multiply these two, this is negative and this is positive. And then you always check. Okay, 2x times x, does that give you 2x squared? Yes. Negative 1 times 5, does that give me negative 5? Yes. And then we check these two, and when I add, I get 9. So whenever there's a coefficient in front of my x squared, remember from last trimester, it's a little bit more work to do the guess and check, but there is my quadratic factored. And then to get my final answer, I still just keep this x plus 3 along. So here is my factored form for example 1. Example 2. I want you to maybe pause the video and give this one a try. But I'm going to go ahead and work through it. So first thing is to find my 0. So I have x equals 7. Put that in my box. Write down all my coefficients after I check. I have 3, 2, 1, 0, so we're good. So my coefficient is 1, negative 4, negative 31, 70. Bring the 1 down. 7 times 1 is 7. We add negative 4 plus 7 is 3. Multiply. 21, this is negative 10, multiply negative 70, 0. So, remainder, constant, x squared. My one factor is x minus 7. Then I would have x squared plus 3x minus 10. From here, I need to factor down my x squared plus 3x minus 10. So my first factor stays. This one's nice because it's a 1 in front, so I know I'm just going to have x and x, and then I can just say, well, what multiplies to negative 10 but adds to 3? Well, 5 and 2, and positive 5, 5 minus 2 is 3. So there it is, factored form for example 2. 3. Same thing. This one is a little bit different though, because remember we have this 2 in front. So remember, what do I have to do if I have that 2 in front? I must divide everybody by 2. So this is where your calculator will come in handy if you're not a fan of fractions. So what I have here is, this is really 3x to the third, 29 over 2 I'm going to leave, 29 over 2x squared, minus 7 over 2x minus 5 divided by x plus 1/2. I'm going to go ahead, take this and set it equal to 0. And so I have x is equal to negative 1/2. So I put negative 1/2, 3, 29 over 2, negative 7 over 2, negative 5. Bring down the 3. So if you do not feel comfortable, this is where you take out your calculator. Negative 1/2 times 3. Then you can go math frac like yesterday, but this is negative 3 over 2. 29 minus 3 will give me 26 over 2. So we'd have 26 over 2, which is 13. I'd have negative 1/2 times 13, so it's negative 13 over 2. Negative 7 minus 13 is negative 20 over 2, so negative 10. And then negative 1/2 times negative 10 would be positive 10 over 2, which is 5, remainder of 0. So, remainder, constant, x squared. Just to point out, when we're doing problems like this, if I'm saying that this is a factor, then you should always be getting a remainder of 0, and if you're not, you need to go back and check. Okay, so we have 2x plus 1, and then I have 3x squared plus 13x minus 10. And then we go ahead from here, and we got to break down our 3x squared plus 13x minus 10. So my 2x plus 1 stays. 3 is nice because we just have 1 times 3. 10, a little bit more work. We have 1 times 10, 2 times 5. So I know because 3 is prime, I know I have to have a 3x and an x. Now I might have a little bit more guessing and checking going on here. I always like to start with the two numbers that are closest together. I feel like I find more luck when I do it that way. But I would have, I'm going to try 2 and 5, so 2x, 3 times 5 is 15, With those two numbers, can I add to 13? Add or subtract? Yes, if this was negative. Positive. So you just need to be careful. Negative 2 times 5, is that negative 10? Yes. What if this didn't work? Because this one did work right away for me. If it didn't work, you would switch. Try 5 here, 2 here, and then do the same process. Otherwise, it does work. Lucky me. And so there's my final answer for number 3. Number 4. Same idea as number 3. Maybe take a break. Pause the video and try this one on your own and then come back and watch me do it. So I first check. I have degree 3, 2, 1, 0, so we're good. But I have this coefficient of 3, so I'm going to divide everybody by 3. If I take this and set it equal to 0, this is what I have. So my x is equal to 5 over 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Negative 37 over 3 is not nice, so negative 37 over 3, excuse me. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 25 over 3, we're going to leave as a fraction. So I go ahead, I bring down 2. 5 times 2 is 10 over 3, so I have 10 over 3. Negative 37 plus 10 is negative 27. Negative 27 divided by 3 is negative 9. I have 5 times negative 9, which is negative 45 over 3, which is negative 15. I add these two together, I get negative 5. 5 times negative 5 is negative 25 over 3. So I have a remainder of 0. So remainder, constant, x squared. So what do I have here? My first factor would be 3x minus 5, and then I have 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. So once again, 2, we got 1 times 2, and then 5's nice because it's prime, 1 times 5. So I would have 3x minus 5, and I know I'm going to have a 2x and an x. And then I go ahead and I'm just going to guess and check and try this one out. I would try, let's just say 5 and 1. If I check this one, I get 5x and I get 2x. With those two numbers, can I add in any way to get 9? 5 plus 2 is 7, so no, this does not work. So then I'm going to swap it around. I'm going to put 1 here and 5 here. So 1, 5. This gives me 1x, and this gives me 10x. With those two, can I get to negative 9? Why, yes, if this is negative, negative 10 plus 1 is negative 9. So that means that this is negative and this is positive. So my answer would be 3x minus 5, 2x plus 1, and then I would have x minus 5. Another thing I want to point out is if you wrote, I don't know, x minus 5, 2x plus 1, write it in a different order, does it matter? No. As long as what's inside the parentheses is the same, then it's totally fine. So this is my final answer for number 4. All right. If you have questions on number 4 or any 1, 2, or 3, please be sure to pause the video, come and ask. Otherwise, make sure you write them on your paper and ask me when you have a chance. Let's move on to a word problem. The volume of a rectangular prism is x cubed plus 3x squared minus x minus 3 cubic inches. The width of the rectangle is x plus 1. What is the height and length of the rectangular prism? This is very similar to our starting out problem for today. So it's basically saying x plus 1 is a factor of this volume equation, so we need to set it equal to 0 and synthetically divide out our factor of x plus 1. So we would have 1, 3, negative 1, negative 3. Bring down the 1. We multiply negative 1 times 1. And then we have 3 plus negative 1, so 2. Negative 2. This is negative 3. So there it is. Divided out our factor of x plus 1. Remainder, constant, x squared. So I currently have that my width is x plus 1, but my height and length is x squared plus 2x minus 3. So to figure those out, I would just need to factor this piece. This one's nice, x squared, so just an x and an x. And then what multiplies to 3? Well, there's only one option, 1 and 3, but we got to add to a positive 2. So that means 3 is positive, 3 minus 1 is positive 2. So one of these could be my length and one would be my height. So doesn't matter if you want to, you could just say that these are your length and your width. Sorry, This is your height, this is your length, or you could just write it out. My volume would be x plus 1, which is your width, and then x minus 1, x plus 3. But there it is, all factored out. Number 6, we have the area of a triangular sail is 16x to the 4th minus 60x to the 3rd minus 28x squared plus 56x minus 32 square meters. So be careful, this one is a triangle. The height of the sail is x minus 4. What is the length of the base of the sail? So area of a triangle, got to think about that. It's base times height divided by 2. So right now, they are telling us the area. We know this, and we know the height. What do we not know? The base. That's what we're trying to find. So I'm going to just take this equation because it's easier to work with and solve it for the base. So what we need to do is times both sides by 2. So I have 2a is equal to base times height. And if I'm trying to get b by itself, I would divide both sides by h. So my base will be equal to 2 times the area divided by the height. So let's do this. My base equals 2 times the area. So I'm writing out my area equation. All over the height, which is x minus 4. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 2. So I have 2 times 16, so it's really 32x to the 4th minus 120 x to the 3rd minus 28 times 2 is 56, so minus 56x squared plus 56 times 2, didn't go where I wanted it to, 56 times 2, which is 112x, minus 2 times 32, which is 64, all divided by x minus 4. So from here, all I need to do is do my synthetic division. I take what I'm dividing by and set it equal to 0. Put that in my box, and then I would do my coefficients. So I just check 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, so we're good. So 32, negative 120, negative 56, 112, and then negative 64. And I complete synthetic division. So bring down the 32. 32 times 4 is 128. Add these two together and I'm left with 8. 4 times 8 is 32. Negative 56 plus 32 is negative 24. Negative 24 times 4 is negative 96. 112 minus 96 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. Add them together, you get 0, so that's my remainder. So I have remainder, constant, x squared, and x to the 3rd. So what is this representing? Well, if you took your area times 2 divided by your height, we were going to get our base. So this is my answer for my base. So my base is equal to 32x to the 3rd plus 8x squared minus 24x plus 16, and this is in meters. So that is what would represent my base. And that is it for Unit 7 Video 4. If you have any questions, please be sure to ask. Otherwise, go ahead and work on that Unit 7 Practice 4 and have a great day.